Hello and welcome to today's video. This is English Made Easy by IBPS Guide. Today we will be taking a look at reading comprehension. We'll discuss a full example and learn how to answer the questions. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little about IBPS Guide. On our website, we have daily free questions. You can use them to practice for your SSC as well as banking exams. You can also check out our test series, which are of the highest standards, and all of the tests come with detailed solutions. At the end of every test, you will be provided with a SMART analysis, which you can use to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. It's also available in Hindi and English, so you can switch between the two. You can access our website through the desktop as well as the mobile app. For more information, please check out our e-store at e-store.ibpsguide.com. Do check out our English eBook Pro exclusively on the new pattern. There are over 1,000 practice questions and all of them come with detailed explanations. Topics covered are error spotting, sentence arrangement, synonyms, antonyms, reading comprehension, sentence correction, phrase replacement, and cloze test. All the questions that have been asked in the recent bank exams have been covered in this ebook. You can check out this ebook at e-store.ibpsguide.com. Before we discuss the example, let's take a look at the best strategy to answer reading comprehension questions. First, read the questions and identify keywords. Every question will have a keyword, so we need to identify that first so that when we're reading the passage, we can look for those keywords. Next, read the passage while looking for the keywords given in the questions. Third, try to guess meanings of words you don't know based on the context. So when you look at the questions, you will see that you already know the meaning to some of these words. And the words that you don't know the meaning for, those are the words you should be looking for in the passage. Next, identify the tone of the author. The passage given can be in any one of these tones. It can be assertive, analytical, critical, appreciative, introspective, or retrospective. Assertive means that the author is making a strong point. And you can identify this when the author says things like, "This has to be done," or "I believe that this is the only way to do it." Next, analytical. Analytical means that the author is analyzing the situation. You can identify this when the author is talking about both the pros and the cons, or talking about the good things and the bad things. Next, critical. Critical is usually when you're talking more about the cons and more about the problems and less about the solutions. Appreciative. Appreciative is easy to understand when the author is appreciating something or talking highly of something that is being discussed. Next, introspective. Introspective means looking towards yourself. So the author will be placing questions like, do you think that this is how the situation should be handled? Or is this how we should be dealing with this problem? So questions like that will give you an idea. It will help you understand that it is an introspective point of view. Next, retrospective. Retrospective means looking back at something that has already happened and learning from your mistakes. So if the author is talking about an issue that has already happened and he's talking about how it could have been dealt better, then it is a retrospective passage. Last point, also a very important point, pay attention to implied meaning. So when I say implied, what I mean is that the things that are not mentioned in the passage, but you have to understand it from the context. We will discuss this in detail when looking at the example. Let's begin with the example. As discussed in the strategy, first we'll quickly go through the questions and then read the passage. And since we are only skimming through the questions, we'll only read the options if necessary. Otherwise, we will read only the question and take a note of the keywords. First question, what is the author's take on elite sportsmen? So we will look for the word elite sportsman or the word elite. Next question, choose an appropriate title for the passage. The Slump of Djokovic, Elite Sportsman's Career Ending, The Comeback of Djokovic, or all of the above. So here you can see that option A and B are negative and option C is positive. So when reading the passage, we just need to see whether it sounds positive or negative. I've highlighted the keywords in blue. These are the words that you should be remembering when reading the passage. Next question, what is the author's tone in the passage? Next, from the following options, choose the one which fits in the given blank correctly. This we can only answer after reading the passage. Next, synonym for hallowed and antonym for torment. Next question, synonym for slump and synonym for invincible. Last question, antonym for wilderness. Now let's read the passage. The sporting wilderness is a cruel, unforgiving place. Now this word wilderness, we saw it in one of the questions. It's a keyword. Let's try to figure out the meaning of this word. It says that the wilderness is an unforgiving place. It's very cruel. Next sentence says, not even the greatest of champions avoid its desolate landscape. So here the pronoun it is referring to wilderness. So they're saying that the wilderness is cruel, unforgiving, and it has a desolate landscape. So all of these words, as you can see, are negative words. And they're saying that it's a landscape, which means it's a region or an area, right? So now let's look at the question that has the word wilderness. The question is, choose antonym for wilderness. So from the context of this word, we understood that it's a negative word and it's talking about a region or a locality. So the options are uninhabited, desert, inhabited, and toxic. Uninhabited means it's not used by anybody. Nobody is living there, right? Next, desert. Again, it's a very difficult landscape for someone to live in. Next is inhabited. That means someone is living there. And last one means toxic. Okay. So of these four options, only inhabited is not negative. All the other three options are very negative. So from the context, we know that the wilderness is a negative place to live in, and inhabited is the only option that says that it can be a place where people can live comfortably. Therefore, option C, inhabited, is the antonym for wilderness. This is how you should use the context to guess the meaning of a word that you don't know. Even if you don't know the exact meaning of the word, you can still guess the correct answer based on the context. Now let's go back to reading the passage. So far we have read that even the greatest of champions get stuck in the wilderness sometimes, and only a few find their way out of it. Okay, next. Ever since Novak Djokovic won his 12th major at Roland Garros in 2016, becoming only the second man after Rod Laver in 1969 to hold all 4 Grand Slam titles at once, he has wandered the wastelands that strugglers frequent. So when reading a long sentence like this, if there is a hyphenated sentence inside the sentence and you are struggling to understand the meaning, read the sentence without the part inside the hyphens. Ever since Novak Djokovic won his 12th major at Roland Garros in 2016, he has wandered the wastelands that strugglers frequent. So what they're saying is that after that particular match, he has been struggling a lot. And the implied meaning is that until that point, he was very successful. Now the sentence inside the hyphen is saying that after winning that match, he became the second person to hold all 4 Grand Slam titles at once. This is one method to simplify a hyphenated sentence and understand it easily. Next, the mask of invincibility that he had worn for the best part of 2 years cracked. Now this word invincibility was a keyword. We saw it in one of the questions. Okay, so they're saying the mask of invincibility he had worn cracked after 2 years. In the previous sentences so far, we've seen that he was very successful for one period and then suddenly he started struggling a lot. So based on the context, we can understand that invincibility has something to do with being extremely successful. And since they've said that his mask of invincibility cracked, we know that it means his period of success suddenly came to a halt. So here, simply by reading the sentence, the mask of invincibility cracked, we cannot guess the meaning of the word. But by reading the sentences before that and understanding the meaning of the sentence, we are able to guess the meaning of this word. So the question is, choose the synonym for invincible. We already know that invincible is something related to being extremely successful. So let's look at the options. A, struggling. B, vulnerable. C, undefeated. And D, happy. So the first two options are negative, so we can omit that. The next two options are undefeated and happy. So in the passage that we've read, so far they're talking about the successfulness and the defeat of Novak Djokovic. So it has more to do with success and defeat rather than happiness and sadness, right? So the correct option has to be undefeated. And the answer is option C. Let's continue reading the passage. Indeed, when he bowed out of the French Open this June, he appeared broken, damaged. He said he wasn't sure if he would play on grass. And yet, a little over a month later, he was back on the most famous court in tennis, bending to pluck a few blades of grass from the hallowed turf so he could chew it, a victory celebration that had all but slipped from collective memory. Okay, so hallowed again is a key word. We saw it in one of the questions. So let's read this sentence again to try and understand the meaning. So they're saying that when he quit the French Open tournament, he was very upset. He seemed broken and damaged. And he said that he wasn't sure if he would be able to play tennis on the grass field. But after a month, he came back to the most famous court in tennis. So this is a clue. When they say the most famous tennis court, we should know that it's the Wimbledon court that he's talking about. So when he came back to the Wimbledon court, he was bending to pluck a few blades of grass from the hallowed turf so that he could chew it, a victory celebration. So obviously, whatever he did on that tennis court, it was a victory celebration, which means that he won that match, right? So as a victory celebration, what did he do? He plucked some grass and he ate it. Okay, so the word that we have to guess is hallowed. Here they're saying that he plucked a few blades of grass from the hallowed turf. Now, where does grass grow? It grows on the ground, right? And turf means ground. So hallowed obviously is describing the ground. Now, for a tennis player, the Wimbledon field has a lot of significance, right? They have great respect for it. So what he did is very similar to someone kissing the soil of their motherland, right? It's a sign of respect. So from this context, we can guess that hallowed means something that is respected a lot, something that has a lot of significance and importance. Now that we have a basic idea about what hallowed could mean, let's take a look at the options. A, revered. B, approved. C, designated. D, particular. And E, none of these. So as you can see, options B, C and D are all very normal terms. Approved, designated, particular, right? It doesn't necessarily mean something that is very important or something that is respected a lot. But the word revered actually means something that is worshipped. Okay, something that has a lot of significance. And suppose you didn't know the meaning for the word revered. Even if you didn't know that, you can at least tell that options B, C and D are very ordinary words, right? They don't really fit the meaning in the context. So option A is the correct answer. The word hallowed actually means something that is holy. So for tennis players, the Wimbledon field is almost sacred, is what they mean. Okay, so let's continue reading. In many ways, the performance against Kevin Anderson in the Wimbledon final was vintage Djokovic, ruthless, complete, untouchable. So these are three words that they are using to describe his performance in the final Wimbledon match against Kevin Anderson. Okay, so just what is behind Djokovic's renaissance? So Djokovic was actually very successful for a period of time, and then during the French Opens, he was struggling a lot and he quit the tournament. But he came back later and he won in the Wimbledon's final. So now the author is saying, what brought this change? What caused those problems and how come he is successful again? This is a clue that the following paragraph is going to explain why he was struggling and why he is better now. Okay, so it helps that the 31-year-old is healthy again. He was forced to retire from last year's Wimbledon quarter-final against Thomas Berdych because of an elbow injury. He underwent surgery this January but was back sooner than advised. This, Djokovic admitted, contributed significantly to his slump. Okay, so slump is also another word that was in one of the questions. Let's try and understand the meaning. So they're saying that when he was playing in last year's Wimbledon quarterfinals, he suffered an elbow injury and then he went for surgery, but he came back sooner than was advised. That means he did not listen to the advice of his doctor and did not give enough time for the injury to heal. This, Djokovic admitted, contributed significantly to his slump. So he's saying that this is the reason why he went through a difficult period, because he came back sooner than he was supposed to, which means he didn't give enough time for his injury to heal. So obviously, this word slump means something related to difficulty, right? Now let's look at the question. Choose synonym for slump. Options are success, decline, strength, and liberty. Okay, from the context, we gathered that slump has something to do with difficulty or struggle, which means it should have a negative meaning, right? And options A, C, and D are all very positive. Success, strength, liberty. So obviously, none of these three can be the synonym for slump. And the right option is option B, decline. So he was struggling, which means his career was declining. So let's continue reading. At this year's championships, he looked match tough at last, close to his elastic best. But it wasn't until his epic semi-final against Rafael Nadal that he and the rest of the tennis world truly knew he was back from the beyond. It was his dark night of the soul, an inner torment he had to master, for the consequences of failure might have been too heavy to bear. Okay, so the word torment again is a keyword and it was in one of the questions. Let's try and understand the meaning. So they're saying that unlike during the French Open tournament, during this tournament he was completely healed and he was healthy, he was fit, but everyone only realized that he was back to being successful when he won his match against Rafael Nadal. So they've mentioned that it was the semi-final match. And we already know that he won the final match as well. So obviously he won the semi-final and the final as well. They're saying that it was an inner torment that he had to master. So from this sentence alone, we can understand that it was some kind of suffering he had to overcome, some issue that was running through his mind that he had to struggle to overcome. So based on the context, torment means something similar to suffering or struggle. Now let's look at the question. The question is, choose antonym for torment. Options are reprimand, ecstasy, pain, calm, and none of these. Okay, so ecstasy and calm are positive, reprimand and pain are negative. Since we already know that torment itself means something similar to suffering or struggle, reprimand and pain cannot be the antonym. right? Okay, so ecstasy and calm. Calm means that things are okay, everything is fine. Ecstasy means things are amazing, you're extremely happy. That's what ecstasy is. So of these two choices, ecstasy is the antonym for torment, because torment means suffering and ecstasy means extreme joy. So option B is the correct answer. So let's continue reading. In the previous sentence, it says that he had to master his inner torment. The next sentence starts with this he did, which means they're going to explain how he conquered his inner fears. Okay, this he did relaxing into the moment and entering a zone only a select few have access to. And like Federer and Nadal have over the last year and a half, dash. Okay, so obviously they are describing something positive over here. They're talking about how he was able to overcome his inner torment. They're also saying that he has done something similar to what Federer and Nadal have done over the past year and a half or two. And we know that they have both been very successful over the past few years. So again, it is something positive that they're trying to say about what Djokovic has done. The question is, from the following options, choose the one which fits in the given blank correctly. So the previous sentence was, like Rafael Nadal and Federer have done over the past year and a half. So they're talking about something positive and they're comparing it to the success that those two have had. Let's look at the options. Djokovic showed that an elite can never be written off. Okay, next option, Djokovic was unable to succeed. Djokovic had to finally accept the end of his career, both A and B. So options B and C are definitely negative. It says he was unable to succeed and it says that it was the end of his career. So we know that neither of these options fit the given blank. So option A has to be the right answer. Djokovic showed that an elite can never be written off. So they're saying that once an elite, you're always an elite. Even if you've gone through struggles, you come back as an excellent player. Okay, so let's take a look at the passage one last time. And like Federer and Nadal have over the last year and a half, Djokovic showed that the elite can never be written off. Reports of the deaths of their careers are often greatly exaggerated. So in this entire passage, they talked about how Djokovic was very successful for a period of time. And after that, when he quit the French Opens, he was really struggling. And the reason that happened was because he suffered an elbow injury and he had surgery and he came back before it was completely healed. Due to that, he was not able to perform well. But this year, he came back and he performed really well. He won the semi-final against Rafael Nadal and he won the finals against Anderson. So that is the gist of the passage. Let's take a look at the remaining questions. Next question. What is the author's take on elite sportsmen? A. Their careers often come to a sudden halt. B. Elites will always be elites. C. Being fit is very important to perform their best. D. Both B and C. And option E, none of these. Okay, so option A, their careers often come to a sudden halt. This is definitely incorrect because in the last line of the passage, they talked about how reports of careers coming to a sudden halt are exaggerated, right? So option B, elites will always be elites. This is explicitly mentioned in the passage when they say that Djokovic proved that the elites will always be elites. Okay, being fit is very important to perform their best. Again, this was also not openly mentioned, but we know that he was not able to perform well because he had not completely healed after his injury. So both option B and C are correct. So therefore, option D is the right answer, both B and C. Next question is, choose an appropriate title for the passage. The Slump of Djokovic. Okay, elite sportsman's career ending. Now option B we can rule out because his career did not end. He won. C, the comeback of Djokovic. D, all of the above. Okay, we can eliminate D as well because B is eliminated. Okay, so it's between A and C. A, the slump of Djokovic, so his struggles. C is the comeback of Djokovic, how he came back and he performed really well. So the whole essay, do you think that it is focused more on his struggles, or do you think it is focused more on how he overcame those struggles, right? So when you look at it this way, the whole passage is actually very positive. They do mention what kind of struggles he faced, but it's on a very positive note. They're talking about how he overcame those struggles and he did really, really well in this year's Wimbledon match. So option C, the comeback of Djokovic, is the most appropriate title for this passage. Now we've come to the last question. What is the author's tone in the passage? Appreciative, analytical, critical, both A and B, and none of these. So throughout this passage, he talked about the kind of struggles that Djokovic faced and how he overcame them. So he discussed both the problems and the solutions as well. So it is definitely analytical. But alongside being analytical, he also used words like the epic battle against Rafael Nadal and the unbelievable win. He used words that show appreciation towards Djokovic, right? So you can also say that it's appreciative, which means both A and B are the right answers. Therefore, option D is the correct answer for this question. Now let's quickly go over everything that we've learned in this session. First, try to remember the keywords from the questions when reading the passage. Second, do not spend too much time when first reading the questions, just skim through it. Next, try to answer questions as and when you come across the keywords in the passage. This is what we did. We went through the questions and we remembered the keywords, and as and when we came across the keyword, we stopped and we answered the question. Next, if you know the meaning of the word, don't try to analyze the meaning. If you already know, just answer it. Don't waste your time trying to analyze it. Next, read the previous sentence and the following sentence when guessing the meaning. This is what we did with words that we did not know the meaning to. We guessed the meaning by reading the context. Next, pay attention to whether the sentence sounds positive or negative, which will help guess the correct meaning. This is also something that we did. We read the sentence and we noted down whether or not it sounded positive, and based on that, we eliminated certain choices. Okay, last, if it's a long hyphenated sentence is difficult to understand, ignore what's inside the hyphen and read the remaining sentence. Then read what's inside the hyphen separately. This is what we did with the long hyphenated sentence as well. We read what was before the hyphen and after the hyphen together, and then it was very easy to understand. And what's inside the hyphen, we read that separately as well. For more examples of reading comprehension questions with detailed examples, you can check out our English ebook Pro. We have other types of questions as well in it, and all of them are based on the new pattern. You can take a look at this ebook at estore.ibpsguide.com. Alright everyone, that's all for today's video. I hope you found the tips useful. Do leave your thoughts in the comment section below. We would love to know what topics you want us to cover in the next video. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe for regular updates. We will be uploading more tips and tricks videos and videos on vocabulary as well. As always, work hard and work smart.